They pay attention to adverts all the time. You tell a kid now that not only can they play a game, they can earn money while playing the game. 10 years from now, are they going to play a game where they don't earn money?
Hey guys, Griffin here. Today we're going to discuss a video from Josh Strife Hayes about how play-to-earn gaming is not the future. They are generally negative about play-to-earn gaming in this video, and for fairly good reason. Thus far, there haven't been a whole lot of successful Web3 games that haven't scammed people out of their money, so I completely get where they're coming from. But they also actually do tend to answer a lot of the questions that they pose as negatives in a more positive light. Essentially, they are correct in a lot of the things that they talk about, but they just don't really understand that there are games out there that take these principles that they're talking about in mind. They just have a dislike for larger corporations creating video games that they feel are soulless and lack art, which I empathize with. However, a lot of the best Web3 games that are currently available are from smaller indie studios. And so I don't think that the Web3 play-to-earn crypto gaming, whatever you want to call it, model is necessarily exclusive to big studios or something like the metaverse that Mark Zuckerberg is trying to create, which I generally hate and have a huge distaste for. These theories that play-to-earn gaming is not going to be successful just because it has a play-to-earn tag associated with it does not automatically mean that it's soulless and lacks art. And just because it has an in-game economy that you can actually profit off of does not mean that it is unlike something we already have today. So I'll go over each of these points as we go through this video, but I'm gonna roll some of the clips from this and then give some of my thoughts afterwards.
What do you think of play-to-earn blockchain games?
It is dumb, and I will tell you why. If it's a fun game, everyone's going to play it. Therefore, you're not earning as much. If you are earning a lot off a game, it's not going to be very fun, and it's now just work. It's a job where you're either not paid much or you're paid a lot and you hate it.
So it's about rarity. If everyone's playing it, then the resources generated are going to be abundant and not necessarily have much value. But if no one's playing it, then the resources you generate will be rare, but also there'll be no one to buy them off you.
So for this point, I don't really agree with the main thesis that it either has to be fun or it has to be work. I think that that is kind of one-dimensional for an argument. Not everything that you get in a play-to-earn game is going to be a reward. Sometimes there are things that you actually have to purchase with real currency in order to receive. Striking that balance is going to be what makes good Web3 games great and the bad Web3 games fail. If we take Splinterlands, one of my favorite NFT games, for example, they have what's called a reward card that they give to players on occasion. These reward cards are generally easier to come by than any of the other cards in the game, and they have much higher print rates so that more people can access them. So they're generally very beginner-friendly pieces of equipment. There are other cards in the game that you actually have to buy packs for, and that's the only way that you can get them. You can buy them secondhand on the market from other players, but you're not going to be earning these in game. And I think that that fine line distinction that you have to put something in order to get to like the next level, that is what allows it to continue to be successful versus games like Axie Infinity, where the entire game is tied to you getting this reward currency that you can buy anything else in the game with to create more Axies that then adds to this infinite loop of inflation, right? Really, to me, I think what they're talking about more is just bad economy design. And if you're not able to access everything in the game as a reward for your time, then I think it's more sustainable that way.
The more I think about that, actually, my opinion on that may change because we already have that now. We just don't realize it. Let's take RuneScape again as another example. Gold sellers, right? There's a portion of the players that are playing it to play it, to have fun. And there is a portion of players that are playing it purely to make money. They don't find any enjoyment in the game. But they are feeding in to the players that want to play it for enjoyment and don't mind dropping a few dollars every day or month. So I guess we already have that. I think they're just going about advertising it wrong because they are only advertising it to the players that want to earn, that want to work, but without the players that want to play it for fun and spend money. Because it has to be a cycle, right? This money doesn't come from nowhere.
Yeah, you've got to have people buying.
Let's say you're a player that wants to play this new game for fun, and I'm a player that wants to play it for money. We both have to exist for each of us to benefit from it, right? That's what it's going to be, but they're advertising it solely to the people that will make money, but they can't make money unless someone is spending it. And if they're there to make money, they're not going to be the ones spending it.
So this clip here is why I made this video. Like, they actually have some really good points here about how you need not only people who are interested in farming the economy for all it's worth in order to extract daily value from the system. You also have to have people that want to play the game, which this means that the game has to be fun in order for anybody to actually give a dang about it. If you have both of these types of players enamored in your game, that is the recipe for success. To me, I think they've unlocked the solution here in a video that was mostly negative about NFTs and Web3 gaming. So that's really interesting, and that they were able to see, you know, how someone would be able to create a game, but on the blockchain that would be able to actually reward players for this type of thing. And they do bring up in later segments that taxes are a problem, and like how having people in third world countries that make less than this for minimum wage are going to clock in and get a living wage from this game. I think that on the whole, that is going to disrupt those economies regardless of whether Web3 gaming is the cause. I think decentralization and globalization are going to step in, and they already have in a lot of cases, and provided higher wage growth for a lot of different places across the world. Like, you take a look at Singapore, and they've got very specialized tech that they produce that has allowed them to rapidly increase their standard of living through globalization. I think we're just going to see that on a broader scale through cryptocurrency and decentralization and these Web3 gaming aspects that will allow people to essentially work for all sorts of different projects on a case-by-case basis. I don't think that this problem that they speak of with taxes and having jobs available to lower income earners is a problem per se. That is essentially the goal of crypto, is to cut out middlemen and disrupt economies. But I hope that it's a positive change instead of as negative as they're making it out to be.
Game development, like games are being built backwards, right? RuneScape, another good example. They made a game that was fun, passionate, between three brothers. They just wanted to make something that they wanted to play. And guess what? Other people wanted to play it because it was something that was fun. The last thing they thought about was monetizing it. Like, there were times where they were at an absolute loss because they were buying servers that they couldn't afford, but they wanted to keep the game running. And now look how successful it's been. But then you've got other games where the first board meeting discussion they have at this game is, right, what's going to make us the most amount of money in the shortest amount of time with the least amount of effort?
So again, they bring up RuneScape here as an example of a good game made by a small team that was insanely successful. I don't see a problem with this being a Web3 game. I mean, they even talked about how we essentially have Web3 games already with RuneScape, and people selling RuneScape Gold to essentially make a living wage, even though it's not allowed by the RuneScape developers. This idea that we can't have good games that are also Web3 based, I think is very flawed from an argumentative standpoint. We just need to incentivize developers who are putting the actual art into their work and putting their passion into it, instead of these big corporations like Meta that are trying to create their version of the metaverse that is generally corporate and soulless and nobody likes. I think that if we can strike a balance between designing a good game, creating an actual ecosystem that people want to be in, and creating a good economy that is sustainable, these are the two pillars. We need to have both of these things in order for Web3 gaming to be successful. So far, there have been very few Web3 games that have even come close to that. I think, in my opinion, the one that's come the closest is Splinterlands. But for right now, I mean, there's really not a whole lot of things to pick from. So I completely, again, understand their argument here. I just think that they are being a little short-sighted in the way that they're looking at this, thinking that indie developers aren't incentivized by this model, because that's absolutely not true. One of the hardest things in indie development is actually getting funding to build the game that you want. If you can just go straight to the fans that want to see your game and sell them assets like on pre-sale that allow you to fund development, that is a huge game changer for allowing indie developers to actually get runway to build these projects. Realistically, we need to see smaller developers embrace this model to really start making way for these AAA developers to actually start capitalizing on it in a way that isn't like horrible that we've seen thus far with like Ubisoft like doing just the absolute worst things possible.
An old saying, a camel is a horse designed by committee. And what this tends to mean is if you have a large amount of people discussing on the best way to move forward with a project, all of them will put a small amount of things in, and eventually all of their ideas will be taken because they're all good individually, and then something will be created. I think when you have a committee or a board members team making something, it ends up feeling very corporate. Very corporate and very fake and very soulless. And you can see that, you can feel the difference.
Okay, so this is the part in the talk where they kind of go off the rails a little bit and start talking about how they just don't appreciate corporations that are making video games and really taking the art out of it and looking at it more as of a way to extract money. As far as like the actual quality of games that are being pushed out from these big retailers, it's definitely gotten worse and worse over the years, and they just push out half-baked products that just try to extract as much money from people as possible. And I feel like a lot of the negatives circulated around Web3 gaming come from that side of things, where these big corporations see it as, ooh, another way to extract value from our customers. Let's jump on this and just make as much money as possible. This monetization model and putting assets on the blockchain is a tool. It can be used for good or evil. And I think that right now it's just being used for evil by a lot of the bigger corporations. And so hate for this model is really being driven by Meta, if I'm being honest, and their idea of the metaverse. If we can get the passion back in the space from these smaller developers and then build up to something bigger, that's when it'll get really exciting. And I think that right now blockchain gaming is in this weird space where we're a little early, and it's going to take a few years for us to get fully fleshed out into a working, successful example. Players will come into the space and start to build on that, and then we'll get to this big idea of like the metaverse or whatever you want to call it, like a digital space where lots of people can congregate, share ideas, and play.
Star Citizen.
Okay.
Absolute spectacle graphically, right?
It's a
what
promise.
Gameplay is there? Yeah, but what is there looks beautiful, but there's no good gameplay.
Yeah.
At all.
So I think that the problem that a lot of MMORPGs are facing is they are being made by following the science and not necessarily following the passion of a small team.
So yeah, I hope you guys understand why I think that these two are on the right track in their line of thinking. Even though they were intending it to be negative, I think that there are some real positives here that we can take away from this. And once we start seeing like an actual big success, like a really successful title, that's when all the people that are starting to naysay right now are going to turn around and figure it out, right? And so there are a lot of obstacles right now, obviously. This is not an easy thing for any studio to do. I think that it's going to take a lot of trial and error in order to get this right, which is unfortunate because right now what trial and error means is that people are losing money on these early endeavors, and I hate to see that. Keep in mind that everything in the Web3 gaming space is speculation until further notice. There is no investing in Web3 and getting a guaranteed return. Things can collapse and change at any moment. Put in the time and effort and learn and grow with the space. You can get a competitive edge that might put you above other people, and you can speculate a little bit better. And maybe you'll be able to make a living off some of these games. And I hope that we see that dream come to reality someday. But that's all I've got for you guys today, and I hope you learned something. If you did, leave a like below. And if you're scared or confused about Web3 economics, check out the video posted on the screen above, and it will break down everything that makes a Web3 economy work, as well as some of the potential downsides of it so you can avoid them. Thanks. I'll catch you in the next one.